if you're a Houston Rockets fan, I got bad news for you. The future is not bright. This is episode 9 of the Royal City Hoops podcast. I'm Bill, and we're going to dig into why we're blowing up the Houston Rockets. And we're not blowing them up in the sense of rebuilding them. We're blowing them up to discuss how much of a train wreck their roster and their management team is. I'm doing something different this time. I wrote it down. I wrote some things down, so we'll see how it goes. Now, the Rockets, everybody knows they've been doing this small ball thing, and I talked about it in another podcast how this is not new. That Mike D'Antoni is kind of a cleaned up, organized version of Don Nelson. Nelson did the small ball way back with Run TMC and the Warriors. His Milwaukee Bucks teams way back were small ball. They ran Paul Pressey at the point forward position. I mean, the Believe team that beat the Mavericks in the playoffs with Baron Davis and Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, they played Al Harrington at the 5. So we've seen what the Rockets are doing right now. We know how it turns out. It's fun. It's fun to talk about, but they really didn't have any other options, and we'll get into why. So let's talk about the state of the Houston Rockets right now. They are currently the 6th seed in the West. On their roster, it's all built around Russell Westbrook and James Harden. They've got $110 million of salary next season committed to 4 players. We're talking Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Eric Gordon, and I think PJ Tucker is no, not PJ Tucker. Robert Covington is the other player. $110 million. Eric Gordon's on an escalating contract. He's got 4 years left on the deal, and in the last year he makes $20 million. In the year after, so the year that the big free agent class is coming in, they have 0 cap space. They also have 0 draft picks this year. So they aren't really in a great place going forward. Next on their roster, they have no size. You might like Daniel House as a nice little piece that they found somewhere. Austin Rivers has played nice. Ben McLemore's had a nice little resurgence. They've got no post presence in terms of, it doesn't matter offensively because Harden is going to get you all your points, and so's Westbrook, and you have shooters, but you have no rim protection. You have very little defensive rebounding. You cannot ask PJ Tucker to patrol your key and guard everybody. So defensively, they're not very good. They have enough shooting for sure to spread the floor. Offensively, they'll be a lot of fun. They have a lot of talent in their top 2 guys. After that, if you get to a 7-game series, they just figure it out. Sure, you could get rolling, but all your team would have to be hot. So what does this mean going forward? Well, I'm going to say Darryl Morey's done. I don't think that's a shock. I mean, given what he said about China, how much money he cost the NBA, that he has pretty much mortgaged the future, and their best chance was probably the year that Chris Paul pulled his hamstring playing the Warriors. You got to also, when you think about this, look at the landscape of the Western Conference. They are 6th right now. The Golden State Warriors are last. Do you think they'll be last next year? No. They've got a top draft pick. They got Steph coming back. They've got Clay coming back. They traded for Andrew Wiggins, whatever you think of that addition. They're poised to be back as one of the elite, if not the elite team in the NBA. You also have 2 young teams coming on strong with the Pelicans, and you have the Grizzlies. I like both their rosters. I like the Phoenix Suns. You got to think the Dallas Mavericks, another year of Luka, my man crush for Luka is no secret. I think he's the next great player that we're going to be talking about for a decade and comparing everyone to once LeBron kind of moves out of the way and KD moves on. If KD can stay healthy, God willing. Now, the Rockets have a lot to contend with. I mean, you don't know what the Spurs are going to do. You also have another team in there. Who did I have in there? There was also the Blazers. I mean, the Blazers aren't going anywhere. They got a nice backcourt, but they got their own roster composition problems that we'll talk about in another podcast, because really, we got no basketball to watch, so we may as well jump into analyzing all the teams, especially now that It's come out that Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell aren't getting along, so we'll talk about the future of the Jazz too. But let's stick to the Rockets for now. So the future doesn't look bright in terms of the other teams getting better because the Rockets don't really have a way to get better. D'Antoni, he's done. The system is nice, the fun and gun and ISO ball and all that, or however he wants to play, that's all offense and very little defense when the pace slows down, and it's nice that he's trying to commit fully to this, but you don't have any other options. You can't build your roster anymore. Getting rid of Clint Capella was maybe not great, but they are almost over the luxury tax, or into the luxury tax next year and the year after, just with 4 guys. So they're very limited in what they can do, and no draft picks. Darryl Morey has jettisoned their draft picks. And they don't have really a lot of development going on in the G League either. A lot of the teams I shouldn't say a lot. There's enough examples of teams using the G League to build their team, to build role players. Look at the Raptors. Jakob Poeltl, Siakam, Van Vliet, DeLon Wright. Those are young guys that they brought in that they used the G League to develop. I don't think the Rockets are doing that. Darryl Morey broke the bank with all this, and trading Paul for Westbrook was not an upgrade. It would have been smarter to trade Paul for pieces for depth because they have no positional depth. They've got a lot of wings that shoot threes. I mean, Ben McLemore, sure, he's really useful to them because, one, he's cheap and he does what they need. He guards a little bit. He can make the outside shot, and it's a great story. So that's a fun little piece. They have to hope Austin Rivers wants to re-sign or not exercise his player option. Not knowing how the season's going to play out with salary cap, with the season being suspended and where it's going to be, the Rockets are going to have to find ways to save money. Sure, they'll be able to salvage some interior presence off the scrap heap of the free agent market because I think there'll be some older guys who will have to operate on the veterans minimum that they'll be able to get in with. I don't know about what they're going to do. They can't draft anybody. They have no picks. Maybe the G League, they can dig up some two-way contracts. I don't know. I don't think Darryl Morey is steering this ship. If the season's announced that it's canceled, I'm pretty sure they're going to fire D'Antoni and Darryl Morey the same day. They're gone. And Tillman Fertitta, who owns the team, his other companies are not really doing that great. So he's not going to want to spend a lot of money. So it's important to think about how this team is going to get better, and it doesn't look like they can. Where are they going to do it? They're not drafting it, which is another topic for a podcast. We're going to talk about drafting. So they have some of the elements to be a great team, but they don't have all of it, and they have no assets in the future. They don't have salary cap room, so when free agency opens up in a few years, I don't know how they're going to attract a free agent unless it's a sign and trade, and even then, the owner's not going to be wanting to pay the luxury tax. So I think the run for the Rockets right here, unless they're going to trade James Harden, and who's going to want him at $40-some million, and why would you trade him if you already have him? The Rockets are really going to be fighting for 7-8 lottery territory, and they're really going to have to build their team from the ground up again. Having Westbrook and Harden helps. Harden especially because Westbrook is aging, and who knows how well he's going to age. But it doesn't look good for the Rockets, just for the reasons I talked about. Coaching carousel, who could be a potential fit for them? I think who's out there that's a retread would be Tom Thibodeau. He does well with teams with limited rosters. He plays his guys heavy minutes. He puts the ball in their hands. And that's kind of what the Rockets have. Now, are they going to play as hard, and are they going to play D like Thibodeau expects his teams to? Who knows? Is Thibodeau going to want to go to that, given that he knows Harden isn't going to play a lot of D or hasn't played a lot of D? I'm not saying that he can't, but he's not. So, really questionable what they're going to do from a coaching standpoint. organizationally, yeah, they're orbiting the toilet bowl right now. They won't hit rock bottom just because of Harden's talent. But man, it's going to be a struggle for them over the next few years. I would be selling my stock in the Houston Rockets if they were in the market right now. So that's quick hitters for today. Like if you like, comment if you got something to say, subscribe at your own risk, and I'll see you on the next one.